island nation with a deep cultural heritage is celebrating 50 years of self-government and free association with New Zealand. Known for its close-knitted community and unique natural beauty, Niue has spent the past 5 decades building a resilient and independent future in the Pacific. As part of Niue's 50-year milestone commemoration, Pacific Island Forum's public advisor Lisa Williams-Lahari sat down for a talanoa with Prime Minister Dalton Tamilangi to reflect on the nation's journey, its achievements, and the challenges that lie ahead.
As the country prepares for that journey of celebration, what are some of the key memories that come to mind for you?
Well, it's just that the foresight of the leaders back at the time in 1974. We got to remember in the early 70s, that is when the United Nations, the discussions about colonialism, in the colonial days, we talked about those, and I think we picked back on that in my own thinking back about it, and that is why I think that we sort of quite easily sort of accepted into as being self-governing. In 1974, when the forum started in 71, I think we were too busy campaigning to be self-governing in those times, and finally in 1974, of course, that we achieved that milestone of the referendum here that enables us to be where we are today. And I've always said that the story about that, reflecting back why it's important, and that is, I think, one of the best achievements at the foresight of our leaders at the time, that we enabled to run ourselves, but at the same time in free association with New Zealand because of that support. I think it's one of the unique arrangement or agreement or constitution, we call it, in place in the world. So I think we're very fortunate. Otherwise, we could have been, if that didn't ever happen, we could have been in the same situation as Tokala. We could have just got a hulu or head of thing here, but you don't get that recognition as a standalone governing island. So I think that is why we're having, not only because it's 50 years since it happened, but it's because we gotta pay our respects and say thank you for what. But basically, that's what the celebrations is all about. It's more that respect element for those before us, and then also what is our strategic plan moving forward for the next 50 years. I won't be here in 50 years, but what are the government of today has got to leave behind? I call it set a platform which can be continued. There's nothing worse. Government comes, next government, things change. We're just going to make sure it's a platform for success of that. The stability of sustainable Niue moving forward.
And the legacy, of course, that you inherited. Where were you in 1971, or when Niue was born? Where was Dalton Tamilangi?
I was still running around naked. I was only 3 years old then, so I didn't know much what's happening. But certainly in the 74 celebrations I do, I was 6 years old then, I do have some recollection, memory, because I was also been brought up with the first leader of this country, the Rex's family, so I'm part of the family. Don't ask me, I followed the politician because it was never in my vein to be a politician. It's only that I returned, that I fought what I learned while I was overseas, what is best for Niue's people and this country moving forward, and that's how I ended up in politics in 2008.
And since 2008, the identity Niue has brought, not just as a country in its own right, but to the regional family. How has regionalism changed in the 5 decades?
It needs the consistency of leaderships that share same common goal. I think that's important. And in that area of Satoke, there's being very shared sort of similar goals with other Pacific leaders. That is important. I can attest and find out now, such as the leaders now, Mark from the Cook Islands, and of course Lucy from Tonga, and Femi from Samoa. We all brought up knowing each other when we were ministers. So now we can understand each other, and I think that's important when it comes to regional issues, is that we have majority of the leaders, and even James from New Guinea, that have that common understanding and what is best for the region. I think that is very important.
And the way that the Pacific, as one united family, has come at the global crises, climate change, the geopolitics that seems to govern so much of our media coverage at this time. How do you manage that?
Well, I know it's hard, and it sometimes is hard to discuss or talk about, but we have to. And we have to find a way, and that's what leaders do. I always remind myself that there's no one after me. You can't prolong or leave something. It's either yes or no, but you got to find a solution to all of these. And it's not. Everyone's not in the same line of thinking, or not. We can have our disagreements, or we can have our differences, but in the end, I always rule myself with majority. So whatever it is, it's tough being a leader, but it's important that we support each other and discuss about these issues.
You look at terms such as the Pacific Way and how it evolved from that small band of founding fathers of the Forum, Sir Robert Rex included. What did he teach you growing up beside him or under his wings? How did that instill the Pacific Way in you? What does that mean for you?
Well, firstly, it starts from home. So what you have at home, if you are complete at home, all you do things is that in that respect and understanding manner, it's the same thing that you bring out to the people. And you got to learn about your culture, you got to learn about your people, you got to learn about the region. Everyone have good ideas and good intentions. When we just finished the referendum, he faces the same challenges in 1974 when I read about it. As you hear last night, one village didn't vote for referendum, but they're the ones enjoying it more now, and same as all others. But that's what leaders do. And the changes, the amendments to the Constitution, that I was probably the first leader to put the motion in 2020 that drives it to where it is. And I didn't do it for my personal gain. I did it for what I saw as a leader, what's going to benefit the leaders after me and the people of this country. And that's what leaders do. You make sure you put things in place, and that is going to be better for those after you. And those are some of the things that, as I mentioned, looking back to Sir Robert's day, they fought hard, went as far as to the UN, and I'm happy that at the time, working together with New Zealand, they welcomed that. But I still question some of the things, such as why was it? Well, you can govern yourself. You be a premier, not prime minister. So things like that, but then back then, which I don't always look about the past, I always look about the what's ahead of us. And those are the questions that come up. But we all know the colonial days versus these days. So we do what we know best for today and what is best for tomorrow.
Speaking of that shift from premier to prime minister, how does it feel to be the first prime minister of Niue?
I don't feel anything, to be honest. It's just a title. It's a title that is understanding on the outside world and us here. You probably recall the forum in Tonga when they acknowledged prime ministers and presidents. No one said, and the premier of Niue. So, but more so in our expansion to the world with the diplomatic ties, but more so the those that we don't have that relationship as yet. There's still misunderstanding between them and our stance. Because every time when they know that you're premier, they'll ask the question, who are you associate with? And once you say we are self-government, but we're in free association with New Zealand, straight away they sort of, oh, New Zealand is responsible for that. We can't do anything. But that's the thinking of the outside. But by having the Prime Minister say, well, obviously he's the leader, their country on its own, we can deal direct with them. So that is the difference between that premier and the relationship. But yeah, misunderstanding like many other states, but some of the big countries, they still use that. You are the premier of the state, and then you have a prime minister. So outside world for us, it's more appropriate to be known as a prime minister rather than a premier.
So a shift in still continuing journey towards independence. Where will that journey take you?
Well, that's a long way before we get there. We appreciate all the support that we get. We remain with our constitutional arrangement with New Zealand until if there's anything happens later on, who knows? But look, at the moment we're enjoying the relationship, and we'll be 50 years celebrating that relationship, that unique constitution that we have, as I mentioned. So I think it will still take a bit of time for us to be really self-independent ourselves. But those are the things that we're working hard on, and conservation or the New Ocean-wide project. Those are the kind of things that will help us be self-sustained. And there's quite a few other sort of initiatives or best way forward for us to achieve but we work hard on that, and we make sure, like I said, a platform where it can be keep delivering in order to get that that full independent or self-sustain ourselves. I think that is what we're doing here, instead of relying, as you know, we are relying on donor island, but we thank for that constitutional arrangement that we had that enables that support.
Can Niueans keep a New Zealand passport but be fully independent?
It's something that we can discuss or look at as moving forward, because it's a good question, because it does deny us in being a member of some of the outside organizations, because we're classified as New Zealanders because we use a New Zealand passport, meaning that we don't have our own identity, we don't have our own passport. I think it's something that to be explored and in discussions, of course, with our partner New Zealand, because those are the extra support that helps us from this side, but we would still remain, or also helps alleviate where New Zealand can't help. So it's that understanding between ourselves, New Zealand, and of course our outside partners.
Can you say that when you turn 50, it's finally time to join the world of the grown-ups? How would you describe Niue as a 50-year-old?
I don't know, just looking back at it, 50 years, it doesn't sound like it's old. I think it's, let's say we are much matured than where we are. It's hard starting off being self-governing, trying to put everything in place. We adopted a lot of legislation from the Cook Islands. It's called at the time the territory laws or something. And some of the New Zealand laws, because that's how we became, and of course, establishing those and implementing those, it took a while. And at the moment, and that is one of the challenges that we have, it's outstanding pieces of legislation. So, it's like Treasury Ordinance, dated back to 1951. So it's a lot of work when we talk about legislations. It's not easy. Having a new piece of legislation and to go before House, it's a process that takes 12 months or longer.
Speaking of legislation, you've introduced so many across the years, but is there a particular policy or piece of law that you've lost sleep over, that you've worried about your people for as to whether it would cross the line?
I think we've done well for the ones that usually needed to be addressed. But the ones that I'm worried about is the ones that didn't comply with some of our aspirations within the national arena. And those are the ones that we're trying to sort of bring up to date, just in order to comply or to meet some of our international obligations, and especially the conventions of the United Nations that we joined to. So here, sometimes it can be a head scratching. Why do we have to comply? Why did it take so many provisions that that enable us to comply to those? So yeah, well, we can't. We let's say we can't complain because we have signed up to these conventions, and we just have to follow the rules and what's in place.
Describe Niue at 2050, this whole Pacific 2050 strategy, charting security for this blue continent.
Well, everyone have their own. We all have that shared vision, but everyone have different things from it. When we talk about climate change, we don't have so much chance of the sea rise level rise, but we have our water in the middle. The oceans that needs to be protected at all costs. So yeah, and others as well. But I think, like I said, we have different. It's no size fits all for the region. Everyone have their own different, unique positions or challenges within the region. But one thing for sure that I know, that sometimes we worry too much for bigger things. We should concentrate on things that can be achieved straight away and use that as a model. So meaning small island states can deliver those, pay attention to those, spend a bit of dollar on them. What they achieve, use that as a tool or vehicle, for example, for these things that can achieve. So many times we go to the bigger projects, which takes 15, 20 years before you see something, but not really fully sort of complete.
Is there a wisdom or a whakatauki in Niuean that really sums up that you would share with us, with the region as an example of working together as one, or what it means to be in the Pacific family? What advice would you
Well,
give?
the only wisdom that we have here, the Pacific is going to take the lead. There's challenges around the world at the moment with conflicts, and that let's uphold that peace and harmony in the region. And that's what I've always said, that we should be leading the way. How we can encourage, apart from praying for those, how we can lead the way. And the only way is that we are all together and live happily as one big family. And that's the way you show it. Don't be by yourself or try and do something different. We set a goal. Let's all deliver on that goal, but more especially support each other, work together as one. And I think that the wisdom that I have always sort of looked for. It's the region to be led by example around the world, because as you know, that is why there's more tension now in the region than anywhere else. How we can use that to showcase our uniqueness within our region. And the only way to do that is everyone to be together and show the love, and how we live. The only way, the Pacific way. And I always say, when you talk about regionalism, as I mentioned, hey, look, Niue is here also, small island sites. If you want to work together and share the prosperity of the region, you're gonna make sure that everyone is involved. So this applies to funding parts from outside that comes within the region. Ensure because the forum's bigger countries' priorities are the priorities of the small island states. So these are the things, and that is what I meant. If you concentrate, because they're small, apply the support for that, because they're much can achieve quicker because they're small, and use that as a model for any future or for the region that is showcasing that.
The diaspora and the fact that, Cook Islands is the same. You walk around and there are empty homes. How do you feel about that when you pass those empty homes, knowing that you've got to have the population back home? How do you bring them home?
Yeah, I'm happy to report our population dwindled down in 2011, 2012 to 1,200, 1,300, but now it seems to back up to almost 2,000. And I can say this also, that there's 8 new houses been built in Niue at the moment. And these are all what I call them young professionals. They're 30-year-olds, something I've never experienced here in the past. It's normally only those parents that build. And we have more applications for loans to build. It shows that people's this interest here, and people are starting to return. But that is what every government should do. It's have something in place so it gains that interest from their own people outside to return. If you look at our economy, I always say that our economy should be at least 100 million annually. In comparison to the Cooks, which is about 350. So we've been hovering in 20 and 40,000. Last year we were 50,000. This year was 70 million. Last year 50 million. This year we have a $70 million budget. So it goes to show that we're starting gradually climbing. And these are some of the things you need to support your people here locally. What is it really, the circular economy here? And with New Zealand, of course, New Zealand supports a lot. And also in the national arena, the majority of the funding that comes here, or New Zealand gives, it goes back around to New Zealand. We've got to remember that. So it's that circular economy between ourselves. New Zealand, what you give, 90% comes back. When it comes from on the international or other areas, it goes down and helps your economy. So we got to understand that. And look, I think people now, our diasporas, we've been having a very close relationships with those in Australia and those in New Zealand. So that's the love we share here. Niue, if you're Niue, this is your home. We're just guidance until you return. So it's so good to see. As you know, this year we're struggling with seats, and it's good to see that these are Niuean descendants moving back or coming to see their homes, and most of them already start talking about moving back and to build and to live, which is, to me, that we must be doing something right.
Beautifully said, and a wonderful way to end. Prime Minister, thank you so much.